With the checkered flag falling atop the Daytona International Speedway, the NASCAR Cup Series playoffs have officially begun. 16 drivers will go fender to fender until the very end, hoping that they come out victorious. So in today's video, I want to evaluate these drivers, and at the very end, I'll give my 2 cents in terms of what I think will happen throughout these next couple of weeks. So, let's get into it. In the 16th seed, we have Austin Dillon. Dillon pulled off the upset with a win at Daytona. Dillon's 2022 season hasn't been the most memorable. He has the win, along with 4 top 5s and 8 top 10s, with an average finish of 16.7. Dillon is definitely going to be the underdog in this round of 16, and really in these playoffs in general. It's going to be a tall task for Dillon to turn on the wake and make a deep playoff run, but crazier things have happened historically speaking. In 15th, we have Alex Bowman. Bowman opened up the year with a bang, winning at Las Vegas and showing some genuine speed. However, the summer hasn't been particularly kind to the Tucson, Arizona native, and he's definitely been on a rough stretch. While last year was a feast or famine kind of year, where it seemed like he was either winning or crashing, this season has been a bit more consistent. He has 3 top 5s and 10 top 10s, along with the win. Bowman's the kind of driver you can never count out when it gets down to it, so watch out for the driver at that 48. In 2020, Bowman cooled off dramatically in the summer, but come playoff time, they made it all the way to the round of 8 and nearly got into the championship 4. You never know what you're going to get out of Bowman, so these next 10 races will be interesting to watch. Easily the biggest surprise of the 2022 season has been the progression of rookie Austin Cindric. He opened up the year with a win at the Daytona 500, and has actually been pretty competitive for most of the year, hovering around the top 15 in points. With 5 top 5s and 8 top 10s, he's been very impressive, and I'm going to be pretty curious to see how well he'll fare in the playoffs. Unlike everyone else, Cindric doesn't really have anything to lose, seeing how this is his first season of full-time Cup competition. So I would expect nothing less from this 2 team than to keep the foot on the gas and see what they can muster. In 13th, we have Daniel Suarez. For the first half of the regular season, Suarez was getting competitive by the day, and you could really see he was coming into his own at Trackhouse Racing. Suarez had several missed opportunities to collect the win, and come the 16th race of the season, it became a matter of when Suarez would win, and not if. And in that 16th race of the season at Sonoma, Suarez scored a magical win. Overall, he has 6 top 5s and 10 top 10s, which isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. While the odds might be against Suarez to even make the Final Four, you certainly can't count out the equipment underneath of him, and the potential he could extract from the equipment. Trackhouse Racing has showed speed at about every single track this year, and that could help things go Suarez's way in these final 10 races. Now, from the drivers who will be starting off these playoffs with a deficit, we move over to the drivers who will start these playoffs above the cutoff. Up first, we have Chase Briscoe. Briscoe won at Phoenix earlier this year, and nearly scored a win at Bristol Dirt. However, since the spring ended, the speed out of the 14 team that we saw at the beginning of the season has seemingly disappeared. Briscoe's last top 5 was also his last top 10, and that came at Charlotte, which was race number 14 of the season. And that race, as we all know, was one of attrition. With only 3 top 5s and 4 top 10s, Briscoe certainly has a tall task ahead of him. He's definitely a streaky driver, and if he starts chipping off some top 10s and top 5s, he could get hot at the right time. He has the talent, but will his car back that up? Now moving up in 11th, we have arguably the most disappointing driver in this 2022 season, Kyle Busch. Busch's 2022 season has been disappointing for a number of different reasons. His finishes have mainly been in the teens, though he has done a good job of at least finishing these races. You've got whispers about his future surrounding him, and he only has 1 win to his name in a season where many expected him to potentially be a championship contender. And that 1 win may not have even happened had it not been for some very fortunate and timely circumstances. With 6 top 5s and 13 top 10s, it's been an uncharacteristic year for the 2-time Cup Series champion. If Busch wants to get title number 3, he's going to have to put all of the contract stuff in the back of his mind, and he's going to have to go out there and be the aggressor. In 10th, we have the most polished driver in the Toyota camp, Christopher Bell. He hasn't been the best like some might suggest, but he has been the most polished. He hasn't been as inconsistent as his teammate Denny Hamlin, not as all over the place as Kyle Busch, and certainly not as unlucky as Martin Truex Jr. Bell has gone out there and gotten whatever raw potential lies in his car. He has 1 win which came at New Hampshire, 7 top 5s and 14 top 10s, which is mighty impressive and a huge improvement over his 2021 self. Bell is a serious dark horse championship contender, and if a couple of things go right, you might see him right there when it matters the most. Then we have Kevin Harvick. For a large majority of the season, many people ignored the stats and suggested that Harvick was having a terrible year, but in actuality, the contrary is true. Harvick has been well inside the top 10 in points for a majority of the year, and he really switched the narrative by scoring back-to-back wins at some of the trickiest tracks in NASCAR. Harvick is coming into the playoffs with a good deal of momentum, and it's looking increasingly likely that he makes the championship 4. I mean, he has the 2nd best average finish out of any of the playoff drivers. He's been fast with 7 top 5s and 13 top 10s, and he's been consistent. He has the experience and he knows how to get it done, and I don't see why he can't get title number 2 this 2022 season. In 8th, we have the driver, the number 8, Tyler Reddick. For the first 3 quarters of this regular season, Reddick showed everyone that he had the speed, he had the drive, and all that was missing was that win. But since the end of Nashville, he scored 2 wins and is another driver who's a dark horse championship favorite. Reddick's speed and raw talent is one of the best in the garage, and now that he's gotten the 2 wins coupled with 8 top 5s and 11 top 10s, the sky is truly the limit for the 2-time Xfinity Series champion. And that's the other thing. He's won 2 championships in NASCAR's lower divisions, so he knows the pressure that comes with vying for one, and he's bound to perform under that kind of pressure. Then we have the driver who just narrowly squeaked his way into the playoffs, really by virtue of Kurt Busch forfeiting his spot in the playoffs to let a more deserving driver get in. Ryan Blaney has been bat fast and is easily a championship favorite. But in this format, you can't make it to Phoenix, and you certainly can't win a title without a win. And with no points paying wins, and only about 2 or maybe 3 races this season where I remember Blaney having a legitimate shot at a win or having a car capable of winning, it's going to be tough for Blaney to navigate these rounds if he doesn't get the big trophy and big paycheck soon. Other than that, the stats have been near perfect, with 8 top 5s and 12 top 10s. Now in 6th, we have a driver who has had arguably the weirdest season in recent memory, Denny Hamlin. On that note, Hamlin has had a lot of weird years and weird moments in the last couple of seasons. He lost the title in 2019 to a big piece of tape. He was competitive at every race in 2020 but the last. He was winless until the first race of the playoffs in 2021, and in 2022, he opened up the year in a fit of bad luck and dismal performances, hovering in and around the top 25 in points. But at Richmond, he scored a fuel mileage win. At Charlotte, his attrition outlasted the field. And at Pocono, his car beat everybody and everything but a small piece of tape. It's been feast or famine for the driver of the 11, and I honestly don't know where Hamlin is performance-wise. He might go out there and take the whole thing for himself, or he might go out there and just be a complete no-show. We'll just have to wait and see. In 5th, we have my favorite driver, William Byron. It's been a rough year for William Byron and us Byron fans. We didn't make it past stage 1 in the 500. Tripped at Auto Club, but got a top 5 at Vegas, and from then up until Martinsville, Byron got on a bit of a hot streak, snapping 2 wins. That win was April 9th. It's late August, and he's had 0 wins and 0 top 5s. His last top 10 and his last bright spot was a top 10 at Sonoma. 4 top 5s and 5 top 10s are okay, but his average finish is worse than Austin Dillon, and one of the worst in the playoffs. There is a massive fall off in speed, and I know some of it has been luck. I think back to the Indy Road Course where we had genuine speed before the field decided to go bowling, but a good chunk of it has been speed related. Whatever notes Rudy and the 24 team have taken these last few months best be applied here, because they've got to get the ship turned around. After what promise 2021 had and early 2022 had, I'll be severely disappointed if Byron doesn't at least make it to the round of 8. Now in 4th, we have the defending series champion in Kyle Larson, who's looking to go back to back. After having 5 wins by this time 1 year ago, Larson only has 2 wins now, along with 10 top 5s and 13 top 10s. It hasn't been a bad year for Larson, quite the opposite, but it hasn't been the dominant year we saw last year. Larson isn't coming into the playoffs as a favorite like he did in 2021, and while pressure is a privilege, maybe the lack of pressure will build some confidence around this 5 team and help them surge into the Final 4. The biggest 360-degree performance from 2021 to 2022 has been that of Ross Chastain. From being a sub-20th place driver to bursting onto the championship scene in 2022, notching 2 wins, 10 top 5s, and 14 top 10s, Chastain is a favorite to take this 2022 title. And the most dangerous thing is, he doesn't really have anything to lose. No matter the outcome of these playoffs, 2022 will still have been a stepping stone to success. Now while he has that in his favor, the one thing he doesn't have is the amount of friends, or rather the lack of friends. Chastain has found himself in over-aggressive situations at some points this year, or has done some things in an over-aggressive fashion. With how many hit lists the Floridian is on, you're going to have to be wary in these playoffs. Chastain has the speed, has the potential to win a championship as mentioned, but while there is a good number of ways as to how he could win this title, there are so many ways he could lose it. In 2nd, we have Joey Logano. Logano's been deadly in the fact that he's been quiet. He hasn't dominated races, hasn't emerged as a true championship threat in many people's eyes, but has chipped off 12 top 10s, 7 top 5s, and 2 wins, and remained right there. You might not be talking about him now, but the 2018 champion will make sure everyone's talking about him as he bids for a 2nd title. Every even-numbered year since 2014 has seen Logano make the Final 4, and it's highly likely that he could do so, and highly likely that he could be the spoiler to the next driver's title bid. That driver being Chase Elliott. Unlike the previous drivers here who have as many DNFs as top 5s, who have gotten a top 10 one week and a poor finish the next, Elliott has been fast, he's been solid, he's been consistent, and he's gotten the wins. With how much parity the next-gen car has delivered, Elliott's stats are frightening to look at. 4 wins, 10 top 5s, and 17 top 10s. He's showed speed at every track, and it's looking to be a dominating season en route to what could be his second championship. Now, what do I think will happen in these playoffs? As bad of an idea as it is to play it safe, if there even is such a thing, with how crazy this 2022 season has been and will be, I'm going to be doing so. The round of 16 features the Lady in Black, the track Too Tough to Tame in Darlington, followed by Kansas Speedway, and then followed by Bristol. The first driver I have facing elimination in the round of 16 is Chase Briscoe. Looking at Briscoe's 2022 season as a whole, it's been pretty disappointing all things considered. They haven't had speed for months, and I think that will bite them in the end. He was pretty bad at Darlington and Kansas and at the concrete tracks, which is what Bristol is. I think he'll have a disastrous round of 16. I think Alex Bowman is another driver who won't get himself above the cutoff. Again, Bowman has had zero speed, and even on the off chance that his teammate William Byron is running with Elliott and Larson, Bowman is nowhere to be found. He was dismal at Darlington, but solid at Kansas and Bristol. Bowman is probably going to end up running in the teens throughout this round, and by the end will find himself facing elimination. I think we can get Austin Dillon out of the way. Should have been eliminated this past race, but I guess that will have to be postponed 3 weeks. Now, the last driver was tricky. I think there are a good number of drivers who you could argue that will face elimination, but I think in the end it will be Austin Cindric, and I'll primarily chalk it up to lack of experience. The Cup playoffs have a completely different temperature than the Xfinity playoffs, and unless you start running in and around the top 10 consistently, you're not going to be there at the end. Cindric hasn't been slow. No, he's been quite fast for a rookie, but I think that he'll find himself just getting outran. Now, as for the round of 12, we head to Texas Motor Speedway, Talladega Superspeedway, and the Charlotte Roval. By far the most chaotic and unpredictable round in these playoffs. The first driver I'll be talking about is William Byron. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Byron has been awful these last couple of months, and while I think he'll narrowly scathe past the round of 16, I just can't put him past the round of 12. He's been pretty good at Texas, and while he leads some laps at the high bank superspeedways, he has struggled at finishing those races. The Roval has historically been one of Byron's best tracks, but his road course finishes this year have been all over the place. There's really 2 ways this could go for Byron. Either he turns on a stub that hasn't been on for months, or he leaves it off and struggles throughout the playoffs. Daniel Suarez is another driver who I think will face elimination. Some might have him out of the first round, but I think that he and the Trackhouse Racing team will extract a lot of untapped potential with Suarez and the 99 team. Suarez is heading to a lot of really good tracks in these playoffs, so I don't see why he can't make it to this round. Then you have Kevin Harvick. Harvick will easily make it past the first round. He has enough points and he's heading to a lot of really good venues, but things get a little harder in the round of 12. Harvick's only weaknesses this 2022 season have been shown at the play tracks and the road courses, and the unfortunate thing for him is that there is a play track and a road course in the round of 12. Not to mention that he hasn't been particularly good at Texas in years past. I mean, this was the track that really got him into the position that he was in after Martinsville in 2020. And then you have Christopher Bell. Bell is a driver who some might have making into the round of 8, but I just can't see it happening. He's been very good at the intermediates, but not at the play tracks, and Toyota as a whole has struggled at the road courses. I don't think he'll be that bad in the round of 12, but I don't think he'll be that good. So after the round of 12, we move to the round of 8, which has Las Vegas, Homestead Miami, and Martinsville. The first driver I have eliminated here is Tyler Reddick. As much as people might be reluctant to say that Reddick will make a deep playoff run, I don't see why it can't happen. As previously mentioned, he has the speed, he has all of the pieces to make a deep playoff run, and honestly, if he makes it to the round of 8, he could potentially make it to the championship 4. I mean, Homestead is one of his better tracks. I think Reddick is going to perform well in these playoffs, and I just can't see him getting outscored by the previous drivers mentioned, and I just can't see him making any mistakes detrimental to his playoff run up until this point. You also have a guy like Denny Hamlin. When the occasion arises, Hamlin can put everything else behind him and perform. It's almost as if a flip switches, and he can put all of the inconsistency he once had away. As up and down as Hamlin's regular season was, I don't think his playoffs will be like that. I think he's going to be pretty consistent in these playoffs and get onto a bit of a hot streak. There's also Ryan Blaney, who's one of only 2 Fords in the final 8. It's been well documented that Ford has struggled this season, and I think that'll carry into the playoffs. Really, the only tracks that Ford has performed well on have been the high bank superspeedways and the flat short tracks. And on that note, I think if Blaney makes it to Phoenix, he'll perform really well as he had one of the best cars in the field in the spring. Like I said, Blaney showed speed, and I think that he'll win in the playoffs at least once. But he'll be a top 10 driver this season, and I think that'll only take him as far as a round of 8. The same can also be said for Kyle Busch. While Busch's luck may not have been the best in the regular season, he is a master of getting hot at the right time and fanning the right flames that may have cooled off earlier. In 2019, he won a championship after not winning the previous 9 races in the playoffs and really cooling down significantly. While he doesn't have any momentum heading into the playoffs, you can count on the 60-time winner to perform when it matters. Unfortunately, I think there are just 4 drivers who will have him beat. The dominant driver of Chase Elliott, the silent assassin in Joey Logano, the aggressor in Ross Chastain, and the raw talent in Kyle Larson. I know, a bit anticlimactic, considering these 4 have been the best 4 in the year, and typically you see at least 1 or 2 of these best guys in the field failing to make the final 4. But in my opinion, I think the cream will rise to the top. That's why I think Ross Chastain will make the final 4. You can rough up a guy at Martinsville, but not really at Las Vegas or Homestead, and you certainly can't rough up a guy if they're just downright better than you. I think Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain will have some friction in these playoffs, as will some other drivers who have some animosity towards Chastain, but I think that will boil over at Phoenix, as I see Chastain winning a couple races in these playoffs and locking himself into the final 4 off a win. So yes, I think Chastain will finish 4th out of the final 4 at Phoenix. I think you're going to see a lot of drivers making his life pretty miserable in that round. He won't be dumped or shoved into the wall, but I think he'll get the Ryan Newman treatment in terms of passing. In 3rd, I have Joey Logano. Logano wasn't particularly good at Phoenix specifically in the spring, but his flat short track stats overall this year have been pretty good. While I think he'll run well and lead a good amount of laps, I just don't trust the Ford power underneath the hood, especially when you look at how good Hendrick Motorsports and Chevrolet have been this year. I think Kyle Larson will finish it out in 2nd, and Chase Elliott will win his 2nd NASCAR Cup Series title. Larson and Cliff Daniels have been here before, and I don't see why they can't make a title bid. They've been one of the few teams that have at least made an attempt at beating the 9, and they can perform well under the championship pressure. And as for the 9, they've been the class of the field, and have made almost no mistakes. Elliott is the kind of driver who can maximize the performance of his car, and you give him a car with maximum performance, and he'll be a force to be reckoned with. Unlike some of the other teams who've been all over the place with their finishes, Elliott for the most part has remained steady and consistent, and I'm going to bank on that consistency and speed winning him this 2022 title. But I can already hear the typing and the comments flooding with disagreements, and I want to hear it. What are your playoff predictions for these 2022 NASCAR Cup Series playoffs? Who gets eliminated from each round and who wins the championship? As I said, let me know in the comment section below. And until next time, this has been the news. I'll see you.